How many reasons are there to visit Indianapolis? Can you think of any? Well, maybe you like American football or a bit of the hoops. Then, of course, there's the motor racing, and, well, for most people, that's probably it. I'm not just talking about us stinking foreigners. Even the average American probably thinks the same thing. I had no reason to visit in 2022, but I did anyway. Actually, it wasn't to see the city. I have a friend who lives in a small town a couple of hours south called Terre Haute. So that's where I spent most of my short time in the Hoosier estate. In fact, it's the only reason for visiting the whole state for me. Terre Haute is one of those places that I've seen a million times but never been to. So many episodes of US TV shows and plenty of movies have made small town America a pretty familiar place for people who've never set foot in the New World. Main Street is pretty quiet, with a few bars, restaurants and cafes, but the busiest places are found on strip malls with drive-thrus and ample parking. The highlight is the Vigo County History Centre, located in a former furniture store. Exhibits detail the history of the county through its founders, business and industry, school sports and even haunted legends. On the top floor there's a perfectly preserved pharmacy from the 19th century, known as the Bindley Pharmacy. And on the ground there's a display of the town's most famous export, the original Coca-Cola bottle, designed by Earl R. Dean of the Root Glass Company of Terre Haute. Downtown is still clinging on to its heyday. Many of those buildings are still there, some utilised and others empty. But like many a small town, there's no longer any bustle, as the nation's car obsession took people outside rather than in. A few miles south of the town is Fowler Park, a multi-purpose public park that provides camping sites, lakes for fishing and swimming, picnic shelters, playgrounds, and the Pioneer Village, a collection of preserved pioneer huts that show what life was like for people spreading out into the new and harsh lands. On one day we took a drive through the state to West Barden Springs. It took hours and went through some of the flattest terrain I've ever seen, and every weather condition imaginable. There are only two things there to see: the West Barden Springs Hotel and the French Lick Casino Resort. The West Barden Springs Hotel opened in 1902 and at the time had the largest freestanding dome in the world, a record it held until 1955. In its heyday, it was one of the most popular and prestigious holiday destinations in the country and was often used for spring training by Major League Baseball teams. It's a sprawling and beautiful complex and is at odds with the local town it sits in. It's still going strong. Its isolation has upsides and downsides, and its luster has been stolen somewhat by the more fashionable and coastal destinations. However, it still retains its proud elegance and grandeur, and will be a great place to go for anyone who wanted to cut off and get pampered for a week or two. On the way there, we stopped in the town of Bloomington. This is the kind of place Terre Haute could be with a little bit of care and investment. Downtown is busy with shops, cafes and restaurants, and business looks to be thriving, thanks to the large population from the University of Indiana. Terre Haute has much smaller and less prestigious Indiana State, but at least they produce Larry Bird. For Brits of my era, this town was the birthplace of Wimpy. Indianapolis is the only metropolis in the state, and its capital. Fashionable it is not, nor is it blessed with the kind of world-renowned architectural landmarks of New York, Chicago, or DC. Even knowledgeable Americans would struggle to identify the modest skyline. Officially, it was founded on January 6, 1821. It became the seat of Marion County later that year and was incorporated as a town in 1832. It became a city in 1847, rapidly growing thanks to the construction of the National Road through the town in 1827 and later the railroads. A number of manufacturing companies were founded at this time, but as is true around the Western world, most of them have gone. The most famous local company from this area that still survives is Eli Lilly Pharmaceuticals. During the Civil War, it became an important logistics hub, and afterwards grew rapidly in the Second Industrial Revolution, mainly as the world's third largest pork packaging centre, behind Chicago and Cincinnati. Since then, it has become a centre for health, pharmaceuticals and agricultural sciences, as well as a major location for sports tourism. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway hosts the Indianapolis 500, one of the premier races in any format in the world, as well as the Brickyard 400. There's also the Indianapolis Colts of the NFL, who play in the centrally located Lucas Oil Stadium, and the Pacers and Fever of the NBA and WNBA respectively. Downtown Indianapolis is, as is the case with many mid-sized US cities, not blessed with recognisable landmark towers that can identify the place with a single shot of the facade. I was there on a Saturday, and the only real activity going on was some sort of fun run or half marathon. There's a shopping mall that straddles an intersection, but there didn't seem to be a lot of activity. The heart of the city is Monument Circle, a public plaza with, at its heart, the 86.72 metre tall Indiana State Soldiers and Sailors Monument. From here, the business district radiates. It's not the most extensive, but there are plenty of the mid and high rises that one would expect. The tallest is the Salesforce Tower, previously known as the Bank One Tower and the Chase Tower. Sadly, none of them are what I would call beautiful, like the Chrysler or Empire State Buildings. American Legion Mall provides downtown with open space and pleasant greenery. At its centre is Obelisk Square, home to the 30-metre black granite obelisk that commemorates the four fundamentals of nations: law, education, religion and science. In the neighbouring block is the palatial Indiana War Memorial and Museum. For tourists, there are two pretty interesting museums conveniently built right next to each other. There's the IIIIIIIIIIIiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiiil. Unlike what you've seen in dozens of museums in Europe. The indigenous art is the real draw. Artefacts cover a range of traditional crafts, with textiles being an especially extensive collection. It's fantastic to see true indigenous arts and crafts, rather than the Chinese-made dream catchers and pictures of a native warrior looking out over the wilderness in the moonlight stood next to a wolf. Next door is the Indiana State Museum, which covers subjects such as science, art, culture, recorded history and prehistory. Running through the middle of the spiral staircase is a giant example of a Foucault pendulum, so please avoid this if you are a flat earther. There's an extensive exhibition of the state's once proud automotive industry, and at the time there was a special exhibition about Major Taylor, one of the world's first black superstar athletes. So, is Indianapolis, and by extension Indiana, worth visiting? The answer is yes. It's a huge place and there's a ton I didn't get to see. The city may not be fashionable, but those two museums are worth the long drive there, from Terre Haute. There's also the Museum of Art, as well as a plethora of smaller art centres, a symphony orchestra and a number of theatres, a children's museum, and even a firefighters museum. It may be out of the way for flights, but if you're doing one of those epic driving trips, make a detour to the Hoosier Estate. Spend a little time in the city known as the Crossroads of America.